Since I got here, there's been like 10 planes passing by, passenger planes. There's an airport, maybe they're going there, I don't know. But lately, I've been seeing tons and tons of planes. I mean, what's going on? People are traveling more? Possible. Tout à fait possible. Anyway, I was thinking here about demographics and how demographics is spread around the West. I once was seeing this map, and the map was suggesting 90% of the population are concentrated in cities and around the coastline. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, that seems right. The countryside almost everywhere is being deserted. People flood to the cities. The ones who seek more autonomy and sovereignty, I suppose, they prefer the countryside. But for the most part, they prefer the safetiness, or at least the illusion of safetiness of the city. People who like groups, you know, people who like the dynamic of a group, they might gravitate towards the city. I don't like cities. It's dirty. It's dirty. It's filthy. You know, I don't like it. Anyway, when someone lives in the countryside, inevitably they're going to have animals, chickens, sheep, rabbits. Definitely will have a dog. Yeah, just, the dog is very handy. It polices the house, the household. And if it's a big household, you'll need bigger dogs, and the better. You'll also have cats, and inevitably, you know, since these pets and animals, they don't have a lifespan like we do, inevitably, there's going to be deaths along the way, and it's part of life. Death is part of life, and people on the countryside, they are more conscious about it, and they have more tendency of thinking about it. And when you start thinking about death, inevitably you're going to think about the transcendent. Yeah, people in the city, not so much. They might, have to go through a relative or a friend, but it happens so not so often, and it comes as a shock, and people are very, you know, sad and everything. But for a farmer or for someone who lives in the countryside, and they are surrounded by death, pets and stock animals, that just die from disease, from old age, from, you know, you need to eat, right? So, and people in the countryside, I would say, they think about the transcendent more often. They think about reincarnation. They think about a life after death. They whatever whatever suits you. They think about transmigration, and death is part of life. And I believe they are more at ease with this fact. So, remember during the fake down, during the mental, neurosis of these past 5 years, there was people, I bet, that never thought about what happens when you die. They never thought, especially the atheists. They think there's only this, so let's enjoy it. It opens the door to promiscuity. It opens the door to let's please the senses. Let's enjoy life. And there was this threat that could, all go away in an instance, and everybody panicked, really, really badly. They even pretended they were authority, and they were on the streets, policing. Hey, you lack a mask. You lack a mask, and here's the test, and here's the QR code, and they were policing each other. You know, I got policed by these idiots. You know, when I'm outside, I didn't put the face diaper. I would put it, otherwise I would probably get beaten if I wouldn't. At least inside, you know. It's so. Once you think about it, it was so ridiculous, but they couldn't think about it because everybody was possessed with fear. The critical thinking just doesn't happen, you know, in a lot of people. So they were extremely afraid. They never thought about it. They never experienced it. Someone close by passing away. These people never thought about the transcendent. Now they were faced with possible, end of life. And again, whatever your beliefs are, I mean, I don't think it's the end. I mean, people get too attached to this physicality. They get too attached to it, and they think this is the only thing that exists. This is it, and there's nothing else. They get too attached. I don't know. My wake up call, you know, it was when I was in the hospital, and I went to surgery 4 times, and in the period of 5 years, and because I was an idiot like everybody else, I couldn't care less about what happens after death or whatever. I was, not into spirituality or any of that shit. I was still very young as well. I suppose it's something that grows with age as well. These matters of spirituality and transcendence. It grows with as you grow old. But to me, the wake up call was yeah, in my 20s when I got those surgeries, and I don't know, it kind of shook me. I stepped into consciousness, you know, as a figure of speech. I stepped into consciousness. I stopped being a child, I guess. Um, I think this stepping into consciousness is part of the rites of passage. It's something that we don't do, in this culture, but there are cultures who used to do that. The rites of passage. People would step into consciousness when they presenced, real situations. Yeah. So they had these rites of passage. Being an adult, for instance, in some cultures had nothing to do with age. Sometimes you had individuals that were like 20 years old and they were already part of the council of elders because they had wisdom, they had lived. And sometimes they had individuals with 40 years old and they were still considered children. They didn't mature. They were still, I mean, there's a lot going on nowadays. People 40, 50 years old, they're still collecting, I don't know, figures, those miniatures from films and stuff. They still collect those things. Or, those toys that come with an Happy Meal and stuff. They are collectors, they collect those things. They haven't stepped into consciousness yet. They are still kids. Good for them, Good for them. Have you ever seen those old pictures? You have an high school, kid, and you look at them, from 100 years ago, from the States. You look at them and who's that? It looks like a 40-year-old man, you know, the presence, the square jaw, the shoulders, and there's the presence, the look on his face. He lived. He's seen shit, and he lived. And eventually, it is our experiences that we go. People lived in the real world back then. Now we don't live in the real world. When 90% of the people is in cities, they are not living in the real world at all. They are living in simulacrum. That's not the real world. That's why they invented teenage age, the teenage years. Yeah, they invented that. In the past, you were a child or an adult. That's it. But now you can have a 16-year-old kid, and they still haven't developed yet. They call them late bloomers. That doesn't exist. 100 years ago, at the age of 16, you were good to get married. You looked like you were in your 30s because they lived in the real world and they developed accordingly. Anyway, I gotta go. I'm gonna fetch my sheep. Uh, have a nice day.